Hi, this is going to be our digestive system lecture part 1. Today I'm going to be talking about just the main parts of the digestive system, and then the next lecture will go into the accessory organs that contribute to the digestive system. So mainly the digestive system is incredibly important because it provides the body with nutrients and with water. There are 4 main processes that take place during digestion or during the digestive process. First of all, we have ingestion, which is simply putting food into your mouth. And so it's starting the whole digestive process. Now, after that meal that those gentlemen were having, they may have some issues with their digestion, but there's 2 types of digestion that will be taking place after they have just stuffed their mouths. You have mechanical digestion, which is like the physical part of this, where they are chewing, and there's the mixing, the physical motion of the food changing position. And then you also have chemical digestion, where the food is being broken down into smaller particles by enzymes. There's the molecules that are taking a role in the digestive process. Then we have absorption, where the nutrients are really being absorbed into the bloodstream, and so that those nutrients can get to the places that they need to allow the whole body to function properly. And then finally, now you thought I was going to be gross, didn't you? But is elimination. So this is the process of feces. So it's that undigested food, basically, that has the nutrients have been taken out of it, the water has been taken out of it, and now we have waste that is left over. And yes, that is my son in the corner. So there are 2 divisions to the digestive system. There's the alimentary canal, and then also the accessory organs. Today we're just going to be talking about the alimentary canal in detail. The alimentary canal is really the continuous muscular digestive tract all from your mouth all the way down to the anus. So basically the path that the food takes through the body, it's that tube that it's going to follow through the whole body. The accessory organs are going to aid physically and also produce enzymes that help to digest and absorb the food. So let's focus on the alimentary canal. First, we're going to start off with the mouth. That is going to be, like I said before, where ingestion occurs. So there are going to be a lot of accessory organs that are in the mouth, but for right now, the food is just going to enter into the alimentary canal through the mouth. Then we're going to move into, the food's going to move into the pharynx. Now, if you look at this picture here, there are multiple regions of the pharynx. And when we talk about the respiratory system, we're going to get into some more detail about the division of the pharynx. But if you look here, the mouth is going, the food is going to enter into the mouth, and it's going to go through the pharynx, and then it's going to go down into the next part of the digestive system, which is the esophagus. Now, actually, before I get into the esophagus, the pharynx, this is also where swallowing is initiated. Now, there are 2 parts to swallowing. There's a voluntary part, and then there's also an involuntary part. So once you start swallowing, you kind of have to finish swallowing. So because that's that involuntary part, but it will this is where it will be initiated, is in the pharynx. Then it's going to go down the esophagus. Now, in order for the food to get into the esophagus, it's very important that we have this little flap right here called the epiglottis. The epiglottis' job is to cover this opening, which is called the glottis. This is to ensure that food goes down your esophagus and not down your trachea, or also known as your windpipe, so that you don't get that choking feeling, and so that food will go down the proper tube. Now, the esophagus really doesn't have any absorption. It doesn't really have a whole lot of use for the digestive system, other than that it's a passageway for the food to get from your oral cavity area down to your stomach. Now, when it gets to the stomach, it is going to pass through what's called the cardiac sphincter. There are other terms for this as well, which you will probably come across as you look more into this, but cardiac sphincter is one of the more basic terms. The cardiac sphincter is very important because it's going to keep food in and stomach acid in the stomach. Now, when the cardiac sphincter isn't working properly, then that food and the acid can start coming up into the esophagus and can lead to acid reflux. The stomach then is very important because it's a temporary storage tank. it is holding that food, and then it's also going to go through mechanical and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion, remember, is the physical movement. So there's this mixing that takes place. The stomach is made of muscle, smooth muscle. It's going to be contracting to move that muscle around or move that food around. There's also chemical digestion that's taking place because there is stomach acid that is being produced and also different enzymes that are very important to breaking down the food. One of those is pepsin. Pepsin is going to be incredibly important because it's helping to break down protein in your stomach. Now, gastrin is a hormone in your stomach that is going to regulate stomach production in general. It's going to regulate how much pepsin is produced and also how much stomach acid is produced from this stomach lining. What's really interesting is that the stomach has these waves or this ripple on the side of the stomach. This is referred to as rugae. These are incredibly important because it allows the stomach to stretch and also will produce stomach acid. And so it's a very important part of the stomach as well. Once the food is ready to leave the stomach, it needs to pass through what's called the pyloric sphincter. From here, it's going to enter the small intestine. The small intestine is an incredibly important part of the digestive system because that's where a lot of the digestion and absorption is going to be taking place of those nutrients. Now, the small intestine is broken down into three parts. You have the duodenum, which is really just the first couple inches of the small intestine, but it's incredibly important. Then you have the jejunum and then the ileum. Let me talk a little bit more about the duodenum. The duodenum is incredibly important because it sends signals to other places of the body. A lot of the accessory organs that we're going to be talking about in our next lecture. For example, it's going to send messages to the gallbladder, it's going to send messages to the pancreas, and it's going to be very important because it's going to be absorbing nutrients, well, primarily calcium and iron. So it's a very important part of this as well. Then as you move into the jejunum and the ileum, those areas are also absorbing nutrients into their blood vessels and then sending those nutrients throughout the body. Throughout the small intestine, there's going to be these little villi. They're like finger-like projections that are just thrust out into the small intestine. And their job is really to increase surface area of the small intestine and also to help absorb more food, more nutrients into the bloodstream. There's a ton of vitamins that are going to be absorbed by these microvilli and a great deal of water as well. Now, once the food moves out of the small intestine, it is going to move through the ileocecal valve. It's another type of sphincter. And then into the large intestine. The large intestine is really important as well because that's going to absorb a lot of the water that is left in the food, and then also certain vitamins like the B complex, and then also vitamin K. Now, if your large intestine does not absorb enough water, then you end up with diarrhea, and if it absorbs too much water, then you can end up with constipation. So you can see that it's very important that there's balance within the large intestine. So that then from the large intestine, the food is then going to move out of the rectum and then through the anus or the anal sphincters and then be eliminated from the body. So if you look at this picture here, we have the food coming down the esophagus here into the stomach, through I should back up, the esophagus through the cardiac sphincter into the stomach, through the pyloric sphincter, through the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, and then it's going to go into the large intestine. You can see that there are three portions to the large intestine here. And then finally, the waste, now it's in the form of feces, will stay basically in the rectum until it is released through the anus. Our next lecture is going to cover the accessory organs that you can see some of them on here, like the gallbladder, the liver, and the pancreas. Those are all accessory organs as well as many others, and we'll be covering those in our next lecture.